Elizabeth at Literary Princess, and today I am doing my April wrap-up. So we will first address the elephant in the room. I got my hair cut. I had been growing my hair out for my wedding, which was in June of 2022, and I hadn't had it cut since June of 2020. So I finally was like, okay, this is disgusting. The ends were gross. It was in the way constantly. It was tangled constantly. I was like, this needs to go. I am so happy with how my hair looks and how it feels, and it's just great. I'm probably gonna keep it like this for a while. Anyway, on to the actual books. I read 15 books this month, which sounds super impressive. 5 of them were picture books, so it's slightly less impressive, but that's still 10 regular books, which is so much better than what I have been doing for the rest of this year. The reading slump is gone. I couldn't be happier. So I am first going to go through the 5 picture books I read. This was for Picture This 2023, a event focused on reading picture books hosted by Shelley Swearingen and Jack at Spread Book Joy. I did a whole video on my thoughts about these and my ratings, so I'm just going to quickly show the 5 books, and then we will get on to the books I haven't talked about yet. First up was Snow White, retold by Paul Hines and Trina Shart Hyman, which got 5 stars from me. Baba Yaga and Vasilisa the Brave, retold by Mariana Mayer and illustrated by KY Craft. This got 4 stars. The Goose Girl, illustrated by Sabine Brunchen and retold by Anthena Bell. This got 3 stars. Many Furs, retold and illustrated by Jacqueline Illis Sage. This got 3 stars. And Snow White and Rose Red, retold by Callie George and illustrated by Kelly Vivanco. This got 4 stars. If you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts about those picture books, I suggest going over to my video on it. I go through, I show some of the illustrations and talk about what I like and didn't like. Let's get into the full-length books. First up was a reread that I was reading because I was writing a paper on it that I then didn't get to present because I got sick. I also didn't end up finishing the book before when I would have presented the paper. I read most of this in March, but I did finish it in April. This is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I love this book so much. I had just read it last year for the first time, and I had such a good time rereading it. Oh, it's just so good. It is a kind of sensation, gothic novel, really focused in on the psychology of the characters. It's told from multiple perspectives. It is just so fun. This got 5 stars, as I knew it would because it was already a 5-star read. Next up was my read for the George Eliot Project for April. This was the short story, The Lifted Veil. It's an ancient copy that has no real cover because it's a library book. It's falling apart. So I did a whole video on this if you would like to go and see that. This was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Definitely not my favorite Eliot piece, but there's definitely interesting things going on. Next was a book that I had as an e-arc from NetGalley that came out in December of last year that I never got to. Whoops. This is The Ingenue by Rachel Kapelke Dale. I gave this 3 stars as well. I had fun while I was reading it, but I had a lot of problems with it too, and they were all mostly the same problems I had with her previous book, The Ballerinas, but they were amplified without quite as much as what I liked about The Ballerinas. So this was just 3 stars from me. It is about a young woman going back to her childhood home after her mother dies and finding out that her mother has left the estate instead of to her to this man Patrick, who our character had a relationship with when she was in high school and he was a grown-ass man. So there are some complicated feelings. She's trying to contest the will and figure out why would mom do this. Like I said, it was very readable. I had a good time, but, and this is a problem that I've had with so many books lately, is like it wants to be a thriller, but it doesn't bring in enough of the thriller aspects until the very end. It did slightly better than the ballerinas did, where the thrillery aspect came in literally at 95% into the book, but it still just didn't quite work for me. It didn't feel believable, and I was just like, really? Come on, nah. So 3 stars. Still enjoyed it, but not my favorite. Next up was another reread. This is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I was teaching this for my British Literature 3 course. I have a whole video up on that you can also go look at if you want to know what else I'm teaching in Brit Lit. I love this. So I had just reread this in December after thinking for years that I didn't like it because I read it in 2017 and hated it. And then I read it in December and was like, oh, this is actually amazing. And it went up to 4.5 stars for me. It's still at 4.5 stars. I think with another reread, it might go up to 5 stars, honestly. But since I have read it now twice in very close succession, I'm gonna take a break from rereading it for a while. Next up was my Fairy Tale Friday read of the month. This is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. And this is my favorite book of the month. Holy crap. I think this is my favorite book of the year as of right now. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is a retelling of The Goose Girl, set from the perspective of the villain of the fairy tale, who is the maid who forces the princess to switch places with her. Our maid is called Vanya, and she is really living it up while acting as Princess Giselle, while also robbing people that she goes to visit, because she intends to get enough money to be able to run away from the country she lives in. I adore this so much. Vanya's character is fantastic, but also so are the other characters. I love what Owen did with the fairy tale, like all the different aspects. There was one thing that I thought she wasn't going to include, and then at the very end she included it in a way that I was just like, oh my word, my mind was blown. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. I highly recommend this. It is a YA fantasy, but it's so good. Also, look at this cover. Oh, the sequel, Painted Devils, is coming out this year, and I cannot wait to spend more time with these characters. I love them so much. Next up is one that doesn't have a real cover, not because it is a library book, but because I bought it used in my undergrad as a textbook, and it didn't come with the dust jacket. This is The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So I was teaching out of this book the short story Jumping Monkey Hill for my class on post-colonialism in my Brit Lit class. But I pulled the book out. I had only read maybe half of these short stories way back in undergrad. And so when I pulled the book out to reread Jumping Monkey Hill, I was like, I'm just gonna read the whole thing. And I'm so glad I did. I really enjoyed this collection. I gave it 4 stars. As usual with short story collections, there are some that I liked more than others, but surprisingly, I liked more of these than I didn't like. Usually I have 1 or 2 short stories in a collection that I'm like, yeah, I liked that. These, it was most of them, and that is really odd for me. These stories all focus on Nigerian people or Nigerian American people and their experiences. I just love Adichie as a writer. I need to read some of her novels because this is the only thing by her that I have read. I've also listened to her fantastic TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story, which I taught in conjunction with Jumping Monkey Hill. So good. So I would say that my absolute favorites out of this collection were Jumping Monkey Hill and The Headstrong Historian, which is the final one in the collection. But also fantastic was The Thing Around Your Neck and The American Embassy. And honestly, all of these were just so good. So good. The next one is one I was so excited for. This is The Secrets of Hartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden, aka Books and Things, here on YouTube. I have been so excited for this since I heard she was publishing a book. It is a historical fiction set in the Victorian era. It's gothic. It is in conversation with Jane Eyre and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and just it's so good. It focuses on Margaret Lennox, recently widowed who goes to become a governess at Hartwood Hall, this manor house that people think is haunted and that people don't really interact with the family that lives there. I love this so much. It just like hit every box for me. I don't want to say much about the plot because it would spoil it, but creepy things start happening in this big creepy house, and it's just so good. Sticking with the Gothic theme, next up was The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories by Angela Carter. So again, I was teaching The Bloody Chamber to my students for Britlit, and I pulled this off the shelf to reread it, and I was like, you know, this isn't that long. I should just reread the whole thing. And I did, and I loved it. So when I originally read this a really long time ago now, gave it only 3 stars because I think I only liked 1 or 2 out of the collection. This time I gave it 4.5 stars because I adored most of these stories. So of course The Bloody Chamber itself is fantastic. I also have always loved The Courtship of Mr. Lion, but this time around I really enjoyed The Tiger's Bride, Puss in Boots, The Lady of the House of Love, and The Company of Wolves. Fantastic, utterly fantastic. And like, honestly, I'm not sure if I like The Bloody Chamber or The Lady of the House of Love better. They're just both so good. I'm going to be talking more about this in my video about what I'm teaching for my postmodern unit in British literature, where I will tell you all about the wonderful conversations that my students had about The Bloody Chamber because they did so good with it. These next 2 are also rereads. This next one, also for Britlit, was Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. I had just reread this in December as well. It is a prequel to Jane Eyre, focused on the character of Bertha Mason, who here is called Antoinette. I love this. Honestly, it gets better each time I reread it. So in December, I gave it 4 stars. It has gone up to 4.5. Loved it so much. And then last, but certainly not least, also for Britlit, also a reread, was Arcadia by Tom Stoppard. This is a fantastic play that I just love so much. It's funny. It's set in a dual timeline in the 19th century and the present day. And by present day, I mean the 90s because that's when this was written. It's just so good. I gave this 5 stars, which I knew I would because I gave it 5 stars back in December. I gave it 5 stars back in 2014 when I first read it for my undergraduate Britlit survey. I'm so happy I got to share this with my students. It's so good. And that is everything that I read in April. Holy crap, look at me go. I'm so pleased with myself. I hope that I can keep up this kind of speed because it will make me happier. So let me know down in the comments below. Have you read any of these books that I read? What did you think of them? What did you read in April? It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.